What is going on, everybody? Good morning. I want to ask some questions. Since we did this video yesterday and we talked about Tonewood, and of course, people just jump in the comments and immediately start giving their anecdotal, input as to what they think, which is what I wanted. It was great. So no shade on anybody about how you feel about it. Obviously, everybody has their own feelings. But as an engineer, I have some real questions. Okay, so I'm going to present to you, and I don't care what the answers are, to be honest with you. I don't care if scientifically, in the end, Tonewood matters, and I have to start taking it into account with the choices that I make with my instruments. I don't care. It does not bother me. I will do it. I will do it, right? Just like anything else. If I make, I'm a turbo guy instead of a supercharger guy. I love forced induction. I'm definitely forced induction over nitrous. Okay. But I prefer turbo. And the reason I do is because when I look at the engineering and when I understand what it does, how it works, that is my choice. If electric guitars were scientifically proven to be a certain way with a certain wood that was quantifiable, measurable, and repeatable, and then engineerable, I would absolutely do it. And I have done with some materials. So, but to get there, we have to ask some real questions. Okay, so these are the questions that I have. When people can answer these questions satisfactorily, then I will totally make decisions based on it. Again, it doesn't matter to me what the results of those are, right? But I just am, as an engineer, I need to see quantifiable and repeatable and things that can be used. So some questions that I have. This is the weird stuff that keeps me up at night. Okay, if everybody's wondering like what I'm doing when I'm not on YouTube, making videos or making pickups, and they think I'm hating in the comments about stuff. No, I'm literally in the shower like this morning or last night or whatever, brainstorming this crap. I really should put some kind of waterproof whiteboard in the shower. Okay. So, since people think that this stuff is super critical, then here's some questions that need to be answered. Can you reliably and repeatably measure the resonant peak of wood? The simple answer to that question is yes. Okay, so you can do it through modal analysis. You can do it through FFT, which is fast Fourier transfer, which basically changes the speed and over time of a vibration into a frequency. That's basically what that does. Sort of what your DAW does on your screen of your computer. Laser vibrometry can be used to like see where and how a piece of wood or any object, but you can use it on wood, how it would move. The problem is that wood is anisotropic. Okay, so what that means is that it is not uniform vertically on any axis. So Z, X, or Y, it is not. It is not. It's not repeated. So grain structure, weight, density, all those things make it to where a piece of wood is never consistent from left to right, up, down, front to back, right? Even within the same piece. So what that means is if you do all of those measurements on that piece of wood, then you have the resonant frequency of that piece of wood. However, it cannot be repeated. Further into that end, humidity, temperature, and stress put on the wood changes its resonant frequency. So as soon as the humidity changes, the resonant frequency is different. As soon as the temperature changes, the resonant frequency is different. As soon as the stress, this is important. So if you have a 24.75 scale, and you have a 25.5 scale guitar, you're putting a different amount of stress on that piece of wood. So, therefore, at this point, we have nothing that can be repeated to a level that makes manufacturing repeatability possible. So it is impossible, actually, to duplicate anything. So when we talk about repeatability, we talk about scalability, we talk about all the things that an engineer says, okay, I'm going to base my decision on a piece of data. Then this data becomes variable with every piece and within every piece. Okay, that's not even taking into account species. That's literally taking into account a single body blink. Okay, so that's the tough part with this. Once you start putting in any in that, the measurements that I have seen are so small. The things we're talking about here are so difficult to measure that it's beyond human comprehension in our normal brains in real life. When you can plot something on a piece of paper or on a graph, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's something that you can hear. And that happens a lot. I mean, that happens a lot. That happens a lot in guitar stuff. Pickup stuff's the same thing. I can show you frequency charts, but you're not going to be able to hear the difference because of how our actual ears work. So there's a thing for that. If you were to measure a guitar the way we just talked about in any of those modes, and then you measured it 6 months later, it would be different. So if you can't duplicate it, then you can't manufacture it. You can't scale it, and you can't market it, because you can't say, if you buy this, it will sound like this, because it might not. So the people that say mahogany does this, maple does this, and ash does this, they're just wrong, because you can't say that, because it might not be true on Wednesday if it's raining and hot outside. Like, that's really what we're talking about here. And these are the questions that I have. Okay. The other question I have is, if this were meant to matter so much, and this is something I think about a lot, where are the peer-reviewed studies, legitimate peer-reviewed studies? Now, you can go in the comment section of this and many videos and read about some German guy on YouTube. And I know that he's smart, okay? But that's not what we're talking about here, okay? We're talking about when a guy does some tests. That's different. I do tests, right? But we have to look at this objectively and say, have we been able to really look at science? Has anybody invested the money and the time? This would be millions of dollars, okay, into doing this correctly. And it would not be a simple, I'm bringing it to such and such university and they're going to test it on Friday. Okay, this would literally be years long, because you would have to do this properly. Not only would it be peer reviewed, which takes years, because you'd have to find other people that are interested in spending the money to do the same thing, but you would also have to do it over time, because we're talking about this thing that it's the repeatability issue of it. And you'd have to, when you do these kind of things, you don't just say yes or no. You have to understand why. And so you would literally take wood from all over the world. You would take wood from different places, different times, different, like, all kinds of conditions. Like, this would be millions of dollars to do it. So some guy in his basement with some tests on YouTube is not that guy. Your Uncle Bob, or even you in the comment section telling me that you have 2 different guitars that sound different, you're not that guy. I'm talking about legitimate scientific studies. And the reason I bring up this question is they've been done on everything else. They've been done on dumb stuff. I mean, we know why it rains. We know why the sky is blue. We know why our dogs choose where they poop. Okay? Like, we know lots of stuff, and we know the science behind it. We understand lots of things. Okay? And there's been millions of years and years and years and years and millions of dollars and years of things invested into things that matter, right? So why haven't they done this? Now, you can say, yeah, but I read about Rob Chapman brought up this paper. Okay, yes, there have been student papers, right? There have been various research projects that are usually students at a university, uh, and they, but they are not proper peer-reviewed studies. Okay, we would need multiple universities. We would need multiple studies looking at every, like, this would be a big deal, right? It would be millions of dollars. Um, why not? Why not? I have thoughts on that. I I have thoughts on that. One reason is there's too many variables, and so you can't study it. That's the easy answer. So who could do that? I guess I'm not trying to give you conclusions here. I'm trying to ask questions. So the question would be, um, who could do this, right? And again, it's not Bob in his basement. It's not Hans on YouTube or whatever the dude's name is. It's somebody like real. Okay. Um, the other thing is there has to be a financial incentive to invest the money. Usually in engineering, it is to problem solve. It is to market a product. It is to keep something safe. Uh, because of product liability, there is always a financial incentive to do something like this, right? So you could do this kind of stuff. So let's talk about a couple things that are similar. There's all kinds of studies about the resonant frequencies of things like aluminum, titanium, carbon fiber, like all these man-made materials, right? And the reason is because they are engineered parts that can be repeated, right? Man-made stuff can be repeated if it's done, for the most part. But there's a huge financial upside to that because as it applies to product development in aeronautics, space stuff, military stuff, all that kind of stuff, right? So the acoustic properties of a piece of ash are far less profitable, right? So as much as people want to believe as a guitar player that they are the center of the universe, the guitar industry is very, very small. And so the owners of these companies have no financial interest in finding the real answer. Also, because they don't want to know, because they don't want people to know the answer, whether it's mahogany or maple or ash. But they also can't afford it. You could say, well, Gibson could afford to pay for this study. They could sponsor it, but I don't think they could afford to pay for it. It would be very, very expensive. So if we can't measure it, we can't duplicate it, we can't isolate it, then we don't have anything. At this point, we have nothing to peer review. We have nothing to report on. And since it's such a variable, I guess my next question is, why does it actually matter? Tonewood matters in an electric guitar. Okay. It may matter to you. I get that, and I respect that. I'm not disrespecting anybody here, but these are real questions, like real engineering questions. If you can't measure it, if you can't isolate it, if you can't duplicate it, then why does it matter? Why would I? So I'm going to ask for myself. I'm not going to throw any shade on anybody else. I'm going to ask for myself. Why would I make a decision on a $3,000 purchase based on information that cannot be repeated, cannot be isolated, and cannot be really measured? I'm going to take my knowledge and my purchasing decision weight, the percentage of weight that I give that, to something that can be measured. Or, in to be honest with you, I'm not. I'm going to use very subjective things, like, that looks cool. I think that's cool, and I'm going to spend my money on it. And then when it comes to the technical stuff that we can track, I am going to do pickup stuff. If I understood, I'm going to just be very honest with you. If I understood all of a sudden that this was scientifically repeatable, scientifically provable, right? Then I'd probably go into the wood business. If there was a financial upside to doing this that I could stand behind, you'd see me selling bodies. The reason I sell pickups is because, from an engineering perspective, I can do things with the guitar, and I know what I'm doing, and it's very simple. It's very, for me, I know it's a rabbit hole, but I've been doing it a long time. This is how my brain works. So it's very easy for me to be in the pickup business. I understand what I'm doing. I understand the science behind it, and I understand the effect that it has, and I understand why. And I also have figured out a way to make it profitable so I can feed my family. Because wood is not that, I have nothing to do with it. I have nothing to do with it. But if I could, I would. So there you go. There are my questions. Do with them what you will. We'll probably talk about this afternoon in the podcast on the main channel. This is not really a debate for me. People talk about the Tonewood debate. I'm not debating it. I never actually. I don't want to say I never debate it. I say stuff because I think it's funny. I don't intend to create a debate. I ask real questions. Now, people want to funnel and fall into where they feel on it, and then it becomes a debate. But from my perspective, I genuinely really don't care what the result is. So I'm not debating anything. I'm asking questions. I want to know the answer to these questions. I know that there will be a bunch of you in the comments of this video and many others who think you have the answers to these questions, but based on what we've talked about for the criteria of the answers to these questions, I know you don't. Unless you direct me directly, say, hey, I'm at such and such university and I'd be willing to take this on. Get in contact with me because we would love to document it. We would love to shoot it. We would love to. I would find, literally, if somebody did this, I would invest my own time and money. I would put the resources together. I would go find money to document this, hire a film crew, make a documentary about it, whatever it took. If somebody actually wanted to do this, and if it was real, okay? But we're talking millions of dollars. But I have the resources. I don't have the millions of dollars, but I have the resources to put together a project like that from my side to document it. So I would totally do it. So I'm not saying that I don't believe anything. I genuinely want to find out.